All right, so we are on page 12 in your packet. You were supposed to watch a video at home on Monday, or if you're watching this in class on Monday, reviewing how to break down the square roots, simplify the square roots. We also did this in your Google Meet on Friday. So as you were watching that video, the first one on Monday, it should have made a little bit of sense because it was a continuation of what we did in the Google Meet on Friday. Then when you got into the second video and what your video was on Tuesday, it should have been a little bit new because that was some things that I did not do with you on Friday during the Google Meet. So we are going to look at one just as a quick review to make sure you're okay with that. If you did not watch your videos, you need to go back and do them and do your cons or you're not going to do well on this test. So I taught you two methods. I taught you one method where you figure out a perfect square that goes into it, you bring that out and break it down, and then I taught you what some people call the singles mingles method, but where you make the factor tree. Which method do you guys prefer? Okay. Most people like the tree singles mingle method. I do want to put this disclaimer out there again. In real life, this is not called the singles mingle method. I completely made that up. The method of the math is the same. I just made up the singles mingle to kind of help you remember what you're doing there, okay? So for that one, you would make a factor tree. I'm choosing to write on another sheet of paper because there's not a lot of room on this page. That's left up to you. So 24, that's 2 times 12. 12 is 2 times 6. 6 is 2 times 3. You need to know you don't have to multiply the same things as me. You could have done 8 times 3, 4 times 6, anything to give you 24, but when you finish, you will end up with the same prime numbers that I ended up with. So that's 3 2s and a 3. The whole point of taking the square root of something is to find out what number times itself multiplies to give you that. So when I say the singles mingle, they're at the singles mingle, they found a partner like themselves. 2 times 2 is 4, and the square root of 4 is 2. So that's why when you bring it out front, it is just 1 2 instead of both of them, because when you take the square root of it, it just becomes one of them. And that leaves me with the 2 times 3 under there because they did not find a match at the singles mingle. So then we multiply those together. Questions on number 1? All right, I want you to try number 2 on your own real quick. Square root of 60, break that down. All right, for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and show you what I got. Hopefully you were close to being finished. But when I break that down, it was 2 2s, a 3, and a 5. So the pair of 2s went out front, and the 3 and the 5 had to stay under the square root together. Any questions on what we did in the Google Meet on Friday and what your first video was on Monday? That might be a little bit different. All right, ease on down the page to number 11, and when I give you another one to do in just a minute, I'll tell you what the answer to number 3 was, okay? So give me time to do it in a minute. But the square root of 56 m squared n to the 4th p to the 5th. So you had to watch a video about what to do when there are exponents. When there are variables, not exponents, when there are variables. So if you need to watch me do this one and then copy it down, that's fine, as long as you try to copy quickly when I finish. The first thing I want to tell you about ones like number 11, the number part out front is exactly the same. So you can go ahead and do the factor tree part of that and get the number part broken down. And if it's multiple choice, you might be able to tell enough from the number part to eliminate some answer choices, even if you don't know what to do with the letters. But your con was not multiple choice, I don't think, for that one. So you had to know a little bit more than that. So for 56, I would break that down. So 7 times 8 is 56, 2 times 4 is 8, and 2 times 2 is 4. So when I'm writing this, I'm going to put the prime factorization in front. So 3 2s and a 7. And then I'm just going to copy the letters down because I'm not ready to deal with those yet. Now I'm going to continue to break down the numbers. So they're at the singles mingle. They're looking for someone like them. They found here the 2 found a 2, but nobody else found one. So the 2 goes out front. I'm going to leave a space because I know the variables are going to have to do something. So I'm going to leave a space and then put my square root symbol and put the 2 and the 7 in there. What's 2 times 7? 14. So I'm going to go ahead and put 14 instead of writing it as 2 times 7. If you need to write it as 2 different lines, one with 2 times 7 and one with 14, that's fine. So when I look at the variables, so I told you what to do if there's an even number of them and what to do if there's an odd number of them. The evens, I told you can write them out, like you can change m to m squared to m times m and see, hey, there's a partnership and bring it out front. If you need to keep doing that, that's fine, but just know if it says m to the 100th, I do not want you to write out 100 m's. I'd rather you know the rule. So can anybody remember what the rule said if it was an even number for the power? Divide it by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and that goes out front. And when I look at n to the 4th, 4 divided by 2 is 2, so that's squared. And then if it was odd, I told you how to do something different. So the last one's odd, p to the 5th. I told you to subtract 1 from it because that 1 has to stay at the singles mingle because he's the odd man out. There are 5 p's, so one of them has to stay. The other one's found a match, right? So 5 minus 1 is 4, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. If you didn't watch that video, you need to go back and watch it. There's one thing I did not tell you in the video. I did say I'm skipping the absolute value part for now. We're going to pretend that all the variables all the variables are positive because on your con it said assume all variables are positive. If it does not have that disclaimer, then you have to do something. I'm not going to make you learn this right now, but I'm going to keep exposing it to you every time we do one of these so that by the end, at least you'll be familiar enough with it to recognize. If when you bring the variable outside, it has an odd power, you have to put it in absolute value. And here's why. Can we take the square root of a negative number? No. The square root of a negative number is actually an imaginary number that you'll learn about in Algebra 2. So the reason we have to put an absolute value if it's an odd power on the outside is because when you raise something to an even power, it's always positive. If you raise something to an odd power, it can still be negative. So anything that's raised to an odd power, you have to put an absolute value. At this point, I'm not going to mark it wrong if you don't put an absolute value because I just want you to worry about what's the rule there. But every time I do one with a variable in it, I'm going to talk about that absolute value up front, so hopefully you can get used to it. So this would be our answer. I am aware that you might need some more practice with that. So we will continue to do some more like that, but we got to move on to the next thing today. But I do want to go ahead and answer your question now. Go ahead.
Are lines like separating or are they just there to separate?
This line right here? That line means absolute value. Absolute value means it makes whatever's inside positive. Remember back in 6th, 7th grade, you learned absolute value means the distance something is from 0. So that's always positive because distance is always positive. So by putting that absolute value on m there, we're saying this has got to be positive. But again, I don't want you stressing about that. I'm just going to keep exposing you to it. If you were to put on your test without the absolute value at this point, I would not mark it wrong. All right, now we're going to go into today's lesson. So I'm going to stop the video and start it because I know those long videos get overwhelming, right? So look down at number 13 on this page.